Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the April 12th edition of the Royal Tyrrell Museum's 2018 Speaker Series. So today, the Royal Tyrrell Museum and its cooperating society are proud to present Dr. Bolortsetseg Minjin. Bolor is the Executive Director of the Institute for the Study of Mongolian Dinosaurs. She grew up in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. She is the daughter of the late Mongolian paleontologist Minjin Chulun. She attended the Mongolian University of Science and Technology, where she earned a bachelor's degree in geology and a master's in invertebrate paleontology. In 1996, she joined a paleontology expedition to Mongolia led by the American Museum of Natural History paleontologist Michael Novacek and Mark Norell. They invited her to join them at the AMNH in New York, where she completed her PhD through a City University of New York joint program. After moving to the United States, she began to focus her career on improving the state of Mongolian paleontology. She became concerned that very few Mongolians her age and younger were choosing paleontology as a career, despite the large number of well-preserved fossils from her country. To learn more about training paleontologists, she collaborated with Jack Horner of the Museum of the Rockies, who helped her establish the Institute for the Study of Mongolian Dinosaurs in 2007. Her doctoral work involves studying the postcranial skeleton of multituberculates, especially specimens from the late Cretaceous of Mongolia. She conducted postdoctoral research with Jack Horner at the Museum of the Rockies on the paleobiology of Psittacosaurus, a Cretaceous dinosaur. Bolor now spends much of her time tracking down and repatriating dinosaurs and other fossils collected and removed illegally from Mongolia. She is also working on a grassroots initiative to educate the youth of Mongolia about the paleontological wonders of their country, with the hope of developing a deeper sense of ownership of their fossils, local tourism opportunities, and possibly the next generation of great Mongolian paleontologists. So without further delay, I present you Dr. Bolortsetseg Minjin.
Thank you, Dan, for a nice introduction. I'm really happy to be here. I always wanted to come, so I heard a lot about this place. Finally, I made it, so happy to be here. And before I start my presentation, I give you an overview of my talk. So I will talk about brief history of discovery of key dinosaurs, Mongolian dinosaurs, and fossil localities, and then I will talk about how I involved with Mongolian paleontology and what are the current problems we're facing and how our organization are fighting to solve these problems. So some of you been in Mongolia, I know for sure. But if you haven't, I give you a very brief introduction about Mongolia. So Mongolia is a landlocked country between Russia and China. So we about 3 million people live in Mongolia, and 1/3 of population is living in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar. So that's the city I was born and I grew up. So the most of the fossils and fossil locality I will be talking in my presentation came from southern and southwestern part of Mongolia. So let me bring you back about 100 years back in the 1920s that American Museum of Natural History in New York sent a research expedition to Mongolia. So the main purpose of this expedition was looking for fossil evidence for human origin in Central Asia, specifically in Mongolia. But instead, they found fossil-rich dinosaur and mammal fossils in a place called Flaming Cliffs. So this is place that they found a number of dinosaur fossils, and most of them were new to science. And also they found the first dinosaur nest from this locality. So it really made the world-known fossil site. So the fossils, those were collected back in 1920s, that were all sent back to New York in the Natural History Museum there, and still they are kept in the museum, and some of them displayed. Even you can see if you go to New York. Like, for example, the dinosaur shown here is called Bolortsetseg Minjin. So it's named after that 1920s expedition leader, Roy Chapman Andrews. So in 1925 was the last MNH expedition worked in Mongolia. They had 3 seasons, successful 3 seasons, but unfortunately, because of the political upheaval, the expedition no more welcomed back to Mongolia, and it actually opened opportunities for Soviet paleontologists to work in Mongolia. So starting in late 1940s, from 60s to 80s, there were numerous Soviet Mongolian paleontological and geological expeditions were working in Mongolia, like the one you see here is 1970s expedition photo taken in the Gobi Desert. And in the same time, during 1960s, our first generation of Mongolian paleontologists started to train in Russia. One of them shown here, Dr. Barsbold, he's on the right. So he's still doing research on Mongolian dinosaurs, actually. And then in this picture, he is with his technician, Namstra, and working on skeleton of Protoceratops. And like 1920s expedition, that fossils sent back to New York, and the same thing with all the expeditions that worked from Russia. Those all fossils sent back to Russia and currently housed in Paleontological Institute of Russian Academy of Sciences. Some of them also displayed for publicly in their museum. Sorry about the picture, it's a little blurry. The picture in the middle, these young people are from Mongolian high school students stand in front of this large meat-eating dinosaur. It called Tyrannosaurus bataar. So this is the dinosaur was discovered, studied by Russians. And Tyrannosaurus bataar is a close relative of Tyrannosaurus rex. And you probably noticed the very obvious feature, both of them have puny arms. And so in this, multiple expeditions working in Mongolia from Russia, my father also was one of those paleontologists trained in Russia. He's standing in the right picture in the middle, along with his colleague and his Russian mentor, Rosman. So he basically graduated from University of Moscow, majored in paleontology, and then he did his research on Paleozoic corals. And then another member of my family, my brother, shown in another picture, he started his interest in paleontology at the age of 13, started to go into the Soviet expedition, and eventually he actually went to field of paleontology and geology as well. So this is the time that in late 1980s, Russian expeditions were successfully working in Mongolia. Well, then things changed again. That in 1990s, we had democratic revolution, and so Mongolia transitioned from socialist country to democratic country. So then back again. So American Museum of Natural History scientists, next generation of scientists, invited back to Mongolia and started to working in the Gobi Desert, and they also found beautifully preserved dinosaur fossils. Of course, includes other vertebrates, mammals, and lizards. So this is the time, actually, I start to involve with Mongolian paleontology, and I had opportunity to join the American Museum of Natural History expedition. So that's during the time when I was doing my master's in invertebrate paleontology, studying fossil corals. And my father was my advisor. So there weren't many paleontologists to go around to ask, to be my advisor. So at the time he was a university professor, and he was teaching a paleontology, only professor who teaching the paleontology. And so I go to my dad and ask, can you be my advisor? So he was a great mentor. Of course, he was a great father. So about the time when I was in my undergraduates, and also at the same time Mongolia transitioning from socialist country to democratic, then economy collapsed. And so people, to find anything to sell, to buy food and survive. And so one of the things actually were really people started selling were dinosaur eggs. And they were selling to foreigners, and tourists. So that's the time Mongolia opened to Western tourists to come to Mongolia. So some of those been documented in customs newsletter. So, before it crossed the road, crossed the border, like for example, the one on left bottom, the title says Dinosaurs of Japanese Tourists. And so apparently this tourist had a dinosaur egg and also some dinosaur bones in his luggage. So he was, going to cross the border, but then customs stopped. And then there's one European country embassy staff also had a dinosaur egg in his bag. And so those things been reported in customs. And so this was kind of like a beginning of things we start to notice fossils leaving the country illegally and starting from eggs. So it was like an egg rush kind of thing. But according to Mongolian law, so fossils are owned and protected by state. And so it's illegal to export fossil out of the country except research purposes. And then things got out of control. And then we start to see some damages of fossil sites out in open areas. And the one, for example, you see here on this picture, it might be hard to spot some of bones, but if we get a little closer, then you start to recognize some, shapes and, bones in, like, for example, you can see like a toe bones up in the, down in the bottom. So it's clearly some kind of large carnivorous dinosaur, and being totally destroyed. It could be nearly a complete skeleton, right? So what's happening here is basically these poachers go for the parts that can cost more money, so like for skull or teeth or claws, and remaining parts, are left destroyed, and means it's totally destroyed that we're losing data and information for science, and by this illegal activity. So then what happened to those skulls and all, claws and teeth? And so now it's getting like, and it used to be kind of like a black market kind of trade, but now it's becoming really like openly, fossils being sold in major auction houses. So, for example, you see this nice, beautiful ankylosaurid skull was auctioning in Chait. And then complete skeleton of Protoceratops. And also the one shown here in the bottom is carnivorous large dinosaur from Mongolia. It's sold for $206,000, right? And then also nice this Protoceratops skull. So the thing what happens when these fossils, being auctioned in auction houses, they usually don't put the provenance. They kind of just put it really vague, say it's Central Asia. So for us as a paleontologist, we can see coloration and preservation in anatomy. We know this is sure from Mongolia. And not only auction houses, and also on eBay, you start to see some Mongolian dinosaur fossils being sold. Like this one is like $300,000. It's a very rare type of dinosaur we call Alaramus. It's a type of Tyrannosaurid, and only known by fragments of skulls. But this one has, very beautifully preserved parts of skull. So this illegal poaching problem really not just concerned me as a Mongolian, as a paleontologist. It really concerned whole paleontology community. So I started discussing these issues and problems that we're facing in Mongolia. My colleague of Jack Horner from, at the time, Museum of the Rockies, and really wanted to do something to change this thing for better for Mongolia and for the next generation. So he really supportive of this idea and willing to help. So with help of Jack Horner, and we established the organization called Institute for the Study of Mongolian Dinosaurs with a mission to strengthen geoscience education in Mongolia, conserve Mongolia's fossil heritage, promote Mongolian paleontology, and edify the next generation of Mongolian paleontologists. So to make the changes, so to conserve Mongolian fossil heritage, so what do we need to do? And considering all these problems and issues with changing, so dinosaur repatriation is the project that we actively started beginning of this case in 2012. So in May of 2012, I was watching a local news in New York City. I'm based in New York, and this has really grabbed the attention of mine, and that this dinosaur is going to be auctioned in May 20th. It's only 3 days away. And this is not the first time I'm hearing about these auctions, but I heard of it before. And so this time was a little different. So I quickly contacted, sent message to Mongolia, and basically saying that Mongolia needs to act. So, of course, the message reached to Mongolian president. So Mongolian president's office asked me to represent him on this case to proceed what is needed to be done to stop this auction. So I wrote a letter to Heritage Auctions president and asked them to hold off the auction till we determine the provenance of this specimen, this dinosaur. And then day before auction, they had public reviewing, so I had an opportunity to go to see in person along with Dr. Mark Norell from American Museum of Natural History. So we both agreed in looking at the dinosaur. So based on the preservation, based on the anatomy, and So it definitely sure this was from Mongolia. It was taken out illegally. So the information quickly reached to communities, Mongolian communities in New York, and the day of the auction, May 20th, Mongolian community came outside of the auction house in New York, and we started protesting, to stop this auction. And at the same time, Mongolian government hired U.S. lawyer who actually was able to get the temporary restraining order from judge in Texas, and he flew to New York, and the same day in the auction. And unfortunately, all this legal and also this community effort, even president's office, auction proceeded. So the dinosaur actually was auctioned a little bit, little over $1 million. But because of this legal thing going on, so they didn't give the dinosaur to the person who was going to buy. So instead, things went quite successfully that U.S. government actually seized the Tyrannosaurus bataar, and 1 month after the auction date. The person you see on the upper right is a lawyer, Robert Painter, who was hired by Mongolian government. And then you probably recognize who is on this picture. So Dr. Philip Curry, me, and they were Mark Norrell and talked about Dr. Hishikjev. Also, he's from Mongolian Academy of Sciences. So 4 of us, we did examine the specimen, and we all, confirmed this specimen was from Mongolia. And the happy news that 1 year anniversary of the auction of this specimen, we successfully won the case. And so this image is basically, we just got the dinosaur from U.S. government, and right before it's sent to Mongolia, so I was documenting everything on this dinosaur before it was shipped out to Mongolia. So I was doing the logistical part of also this dinosaur to send back to Mongolia. And all this 1 year, within a year of this case going on, it really caught public attention because media actually covered so much. And not just in US, but also in Mongolia. It was really sensational. And this is the time and moment that Mongolians realize, oh, we have a dinosaur. Oh, we lost our dinosaur. We have such great fossils. And I mean, not all surprised, but most of them, really surprised to see such a beautiful fossil heritage we have. And then the day when dinosaurs sent back to Mongolia, within 2 weeks we were able to open this temporary exhibit in the main square front of the parliament members building. And as you can see that there's a line of people wanted to see just this dinosaur. And it never had happened before that Mongolians paid so much attention to, fossils and dinosaurs ever before. And so every day we had line of people to want to see this dinosaur. And this is kind of really turning moment in time that things start to change, right? But it wasn't ended here. This was just the beginning. And then after the Tyrannosaurus bataar case, there were numerous Mongolian dinosaur fossils being seized in U.S. and handed over to Mongolian government. As you can see, the number of those fossils. And they are all dinosaur fossils. Some of them still in the jackets, and some is, nicely prepared. So with a group of volunteers, I was able to document everything. I mean, not every single bone. It's an impossible thing to do. But we're jacketing, because we make sure this fossils sent back to Mongolia without any damage. So packaging was really important, and documenting everything. And so it was quite, enormous of work. I mean, I never done this thing before. I know how is it to collect fossils in the Gobi Desert in the field, but jacketing these fossils and doing all these things, it was just really, really a lot of work. So just to show a few examples of those dinosaurs, some of them are beautifully preserved. So the one right here is Alaramus. So if you remember that eBay picture, and so this is the dinosaur was, going to be sold on eBay. So we were able to seize that. This dinosaur was put up on eBay by French company. So Homeland Security was informed about this dinosaur, and it happened to be U.S. citizen purchased and crossing the border in New Jersey port, and then U.S. government, Homeland Security and Customs stopped it and seized it. So then we got it back. And now it's sent back to Mongolia. 2016, we sent it back. And the down here is nicely preserved two, dinosaur skeletons together. Skull and mammoths, could be something new. And this one is a small theropod dinosaur. It's probably new species of dinosaurs. So imagine that, this is, we lost all these things. I mean, we already lost a lot of information for science on these dinosaurs, but still, this is really important to get back to the country. And then another specimens we got from U.S. government is this is a full of raptorate dinosaurs all in one block, and this was going to be auctioned in Bonham, and so we were able to seize it from the owner, who was a U.S. citizen. And then here's a nice, juvenile, possibly Tyrannosaurus bataar skull, beautifully preserved. It's all, it's still in a jacket, as you can see. And then a couple of Protoceratops skulls. I mean, Protoceratops were quite common dinosaur to be found in Mongolia and from Flaming Cliffs, but also being pushed quite a bit. So what happened to all those dinosaurs when they go back to Mongolia? So all this repatriation project in the beginning and start to happen, and government start to realize that enormous number of these fossils going back. So we need some kind of repository. And then government established Central Museum of Mongolian Dinosaurs. This is our first dinosaur museum, and established 2013 because of all these, repatriated dinosaurs. And so the collection of this museum is, all the dinosaurs sent back from here. And the building it now houses formerly was Lenin's museum. Back in Soviet time, it's built by Russians. It's all about Lenin's life and stuff. Now it's dinosaur museum. So, and as you can see, they nicely displayed the fossils, and kids. It's visited quite a lot by kids now. So this is very exciting things. It's happening. So, so we have all the dinosaurs back to the country, and so it's really happy and good news. But the most important thing is we need to have a next generation of Mongolian paleontologists who's going to study this, who's going to, conserve and protect. So we focusing on to train next generation of Mongolian paleontologists. So we started Master's Tuition Award, and through that, 6 students successfully got this award, and they all finished their masters and even moved on to do PhD. Like Oyenga, she went to Harvard, and she actually finished her PhD. She's back to Mongolia now. And Onon Kantumar, he went to Nagaya University to do PhD as well, and then he's basically finishing this year. And Zerging Town, and he's working in an academy. And Basenja Bayer, the Central Museum of Mongolian Dinosaurs first established. I was offered position to be assistant director and chief paleontologist. So I worked there in the beginning to help out the museum, and then I moved on to do the project that I started. So Basenja Bayer, she took my position. And also we did student internships in the field and research, and so we had some number of students went with us to the field, and most of them now working in the Mongolian Academy of Sciences. Also, we do help out our colleagues doing research, and Bayer Dutch, he works in a preparator in Mongolian Academy of Sciences, and Manchuk, she's now in the even deputy director, University of Technology. So she specialized in micropaleontology, and and also not just we given support to students and our colleagues. We also really want to encourage artists to go to to learn about dinosaurs. They create museum quality models of art, because we need such group of people when we have in this museum. So we started a program called Learning About Dinosaurs Through Art, and we invited artists from U.S., Dennis Wilson. So he helped us to run this project. So we had 16 artists from Mongolia, from different parts of country, and learning about how to do a dinosaur, museum quality dinosaur model. Then the same time we did kids workshop, and kids also see how artists are actually creating from the skeleton, and then you see what would be end product, like the model of this dinosaur is a velociraptor actually, and so it was really fun workshop. In the end of it, you will see like 16 different kind of velociraptor bust would look so different. So you can see that artistic imagination can go so far that excite kids and public to learn about dinosaurs. And so we also did training of students abroad, and in my own personal experience, to become a paleontologist was an easy route for me in Mongolia. So I went to U.S. get my PhD. I mean, you still can get a PhD in Mongolia, but we don't have such structured program, so it could be challenging. So to make the process a little faster, and also world quality scientists, so we wanted young people to study abroad. So with help of Museum of the Rockies and Dr. Jack Horner, so they agreed to train Mongolian students at the museum. So you probably recognize Basenja Bayer. So and Batamatan, he finished his PhD just a few years ago. He went back to Mongolia. He's now working head of the lab and collection of Paleontological Institute in Mongolian Academy of Sciences. And Basenja, she's associated with Central Museum of Mongolian Dinosaurs. And also with support of Society of Vertebrate Paleontology and Museum of the Rockies, we were able to train a couple of people to learn about how to do preparation, because we really need, all different levels of profession to make this field to move forward. And just this year, we moving our training to educator. So our educator, Bindarya Mukbat, she's been with us 3 years, running educational paleontology education program. So with help of Mobile Laboratory Coalition and Alpha Museum of Paleontology, so she's coming this month and to Los Angeles and first to do the training in this museum and then go to Biobus Science Mobile Lab in New York. So she's going to have two trainings this month and next month. So we're really excited about this because we're going to launch a couple of new projects this summer. So we really want younger generation to appreciate fossil heritage that we have in Mongolia. So we not only go to professionally train our next paleontologists, public outreach, public awareness is really important, especially we talk about poaching problem we're facing right now. So our educational program started 2009. You probably recognize this place. Some of you have been here. It's the Flaming Cliffs. So these kids, actually some of them live nearby Flaming Cliffs. And we purposely picked 4 towns. Those towns are close to the fossil sites. And so we choose kids from those towns to come to this workshop. And they spent 3 days with us. And we had a program of having them go to Flaming Cliffs and Turgenshire. There's another famous fossil sites. Let them prospect. And of course, we wouldn't let them find a complete skeleton of dinosaurs. That would be a lot of work to dig it out. So we basically kind of made zone in area that they can look for surface, collect like bones, what they can find. So it was pretty active and fun 3 days, and kids were asking, okay, when you coming back? So it was very exciting. So we're not only doing our outreach projects in those towns, we're also reaching out to people in the city and working together with different museums as well. And then the really exciting thing happened is 2013, American Museum of Natural History donated their movable dinosaur museum. So this dinosaur museum is 37-foot long, recreational vehicle. You can see inside is just like a museum, right? So all the things being displayed and talking about is dinosaurs, including those dinosaurs being found from Mongolia. So it's really a perfect fit for us. We don't have to change or anything. And so we got this vehicle, and this is the bus. It's been all over New York. So then we're thinking, so how we can send to Mongolia? It was a little bit challenge. Well, it did. It took like 3 different transportation, I would say. So starting from east coast of New York by boat and going and go to China here in the port, and then from here back of a big truck, and from big truck reach the border of China and Mongolia, and then we put on a train, and then on a train and went to Ulaanbaatar. Then in Ulaanbaatar we drove down to the Gobi, and so then you can see it made it. So this has all happened because of our donor, Jerry Ostrom. He's been with us in the beginning, so he's still with us. He's supporting our project. And so we very close to the Flaming Cliffs. And these people live right next to it, these nomads. And then we just kind of take a break, and then they're curious to come here. The kid, you probably can't see here, but the kid with horse, he wanted to bring his horse to the vehicle. He was pulling. First he came. He saw us, he just came first. And then he curious wanted to go in, but there's nobody to hold his horse. He was pulling, trying to get it, I said, no, you just stay outside. And, so it was kind of funny. But I can take your picture next to the dinosaur, and you can see how big was the dinosaur, right next to, behind your backyard, and compare with your horse size. So it was pretty, he was so cute. So we made our opening ceremony of the Movable Dinosaur Museum program jointly with this Gobi Umnqov province. That's the province we call where all those, most of those dinosaur fossils been discovered. So it was very great event that local officials supporting and understanding the importance. That is really important for us to make this project successful. So government officials came inside the museum, and they're learning about also dinosaurs too. And then we would reach to the Flaming Cliffs. So these kids also, they live nearby. They just, run in and want to see what is inside. And also we did some classroom activities with the kids. And not only kids, we also reached out to the science teachers in the Gobi. It was about 50 teachers. So it was a teacher workshop we ran as well. And in the idea of that, we create Dinosaur Day. Then Dinosaur Day, each classes in the Gobi would learn about dinosaurs from the Gobi. And so that's the idea we were talking about, talking to teachers. And then we need to provide the content and activity for teachers. So that was the out of this workshop, that what we will do next. So we reached to this Gobi, and then the idea is we travel, across everywhere in Mongolia, if we could. This is our team, 2016. So we basically going to western part of Mongolia. So we reached two more regions. So we usually kind of start from classroom, and then kids do activities, and then they go to the movable museum. So it's kind of like, the general idea of what we do with the movable museum program. So far, we reached over 1,000 kids in 5 different regions in Mongolia. We have 22 regions. We still have more to go. So this summer, we're going to the Eastern Mongolia. So it will be a very exciting thing to do. So these are kids inside the museum, and they're doing some activities. So one of the projects that we're going to launch this summer is all the text in this museum, as you notice, English. And English is not, all kids in Mongolia would know, even though it's a second language kind of required to learn from 4th grade. But actually it's good they, excited to learn about English, but at the same time it will be harder for them to understand the concept. So we're going to use augmented reality, that kids would have an iPad, that will have layers of information, including the translation of Mongolian. When they hold the text on the front of the English, it will translate into Mongolian, and then kids can read both English and Mongolian. So that project is also jointly with ALF Palaeontology Museum in Los Angeles. So we're just not reaching out in Mongolians in the country. Also, there are expats, Mongolian expats, quite a number of them in U.S., even some in Canada as well. So because I'm based in U.S., so I'm taking that opportunity to reach to Mongolian communities in major cities jointly with museums like M&H, Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, and Field Museum, Smithsonian. So we run also paleontology and dinosaur educational project, and to bring awareness to them, the problem what we're facing at home, and how they can do to change to be to be part of this, to find a solution for us, to work with us. So the most important project that we're focusing right now is to build a community-based museum. And so we really want to involve communities who live nearby fossil sites, to involve protecting the fossils, and also at the same time they can get the economical benefit out of this. So flaming cliffs. So if you remember the beginning of my talk, and American Museum of Natural History first found this fossil-rich locality, and Mongolia's first dinosaurs been found from here. And so unfortunately, the current situation, what's happening with this place is tourists do go to visit, but there's no any facility or information for tourists to learn about things. And at the same time, locals, when tourists come, they just pass them by, they don't stay. So it wasn't really economically local communities benefiting. And also this is, poaching problem is really getting worse. And also there's some, there's some locals involved. So we really want awareness to them that let's be part of solution, that, to do that, we basically, museum could be solution. We created this information about flaming cliffs. It will be also in Mongolian as well. And also there's a flyer, both English and Mongolian, that we give in tourist companies when we were in Mongolia, and give to tourists because they need to be aware of that, make sure not to take fossils from the ground, and make sure they're aware of the Mongolian law. And then, so we do use this flyer for our educational activities as well, then informing the kids and locals. Just last year in March, team of our board members of our organization, Dancher, he's a former employee of Dinosaur Monument, Dinosaur National Monument. He retired now, and also Taya Buduhu. So, and we working with Walt Crane associate. He's an architect, Walt Crane. So we a group of us went to Mongolia. We went there to see where would be good place to have the museum nearby Flaming Cliffs. So this trip was actually quite challenging. As you see, a lot of snow. This is kind of unusual in the Gobi Desert. So locals were saying like they haven't seen this much of snow for 10 years, but we happened to be the worst time we chose to go, and we stuck in a town like 2-3 days just to get the storm past. This is actually got better. It was really strong wind. We stuck with our vehicle, and we have to go back to the town. Then we went, second attempt, we made it to the Flaming Cliffs. So it was quite a rough trip to take, but we made it successfully. And so we met local officials, introduced our plan about museum, as well as the Flaming Cliffs park management, what would be best. So this trip coming here was very helpful for me to understand how Royal Tyrrell Museum and also Dinosaur Provincial Park work together, and preserving a fossil heritage in Alberta. There's so much of similarities, and I'm very happy Phil is here, and I know he's a lot to do with the museum and the park, and it's kind of similar thing happening in Mongolia right now. We are only in the beginning now, but I can see how would be our project in the future, just like this museum in a dinosaur provincial park. So this is very exciting. So one of the official we met is he's elected from the region for Mongolian Parliament. So he's going to give us some support, and he really understands the importance of it. So we're very happy this project is moving forward. And this is kind of like a general sketch of the building. So it hasn't been finalized yet. We're still in the early stage. There's a lot of things to add, to change. So after this trip, I learned so much, and thank you, Dan Spivak. Dan was really helpful to me and hosting me around and explaining things. It's also introducing people who I need to see and get the best advice. And so now I know what is needed, so there will be a lot of change would happen in this design. Yes, I see lots of bright future for Mongolia, and as much as we're facing a lot of challenges, but we know the solution now. And so once this museum built, and we will see that change will happen rapidly. So we're hoping like 3-4 years there will be a museum at the Flaming Cliffs, and please visit Mongolia. It will be you will love it. It's just like Alberta. There's a lot of similarities. Thank you very much for your attention. Yes, so I have to acknowledge these people and organizations. You couldn't have done all this work without support of these individuals and organizations. And thank you very much.